David C. Smith is a leader with heart, a bridge builder who believes that real change happens when communities come together with purpose. For over 25 years, he has dedicated his life to lifting others, guiding mission-driven organizations toward growth, impact, and lasting transformation. From founding the Hill Country Ride for AIDS and the Jamma Ride for breast cancer, both of which became some of the largest events of their kind, to leading the United Way for Greater Austin through a bold strategic renewal, David has never wavered in his commitment to service. His leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about people, connecting, empowering, and inspiring communities to take action. With a deep well of experience and an unwavering belief in collective solutions, David's work is more than leadership. It's a testament to the power of compassion in action. Hey, y'all. Let's go there. I would normally start this podcast out by talking about how we know each other, but I have to tell you something that happened in a recent recording.
Okay.
So we had our marriage counselor, a therapist on.
Yeah.
Did Chris tell you this story?
No.
And he is studying to be a Buddhist priest. And I asked him how he got into Buddhism, and he
Yeah.
told me the whole story, which he'd never told me before. And he said that there was this man that's been really impactful to him by the name of Flint Sparks.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's crazy.
We are
Did
all
you immediately?
connected.
Yeah, right.
So it took me a second. I was like, where do I know this name? Where do I know this name? And I didn't say anything during the episode. And then when it finished, I realized, oh my gosh, I know Flint Sparks. Not only do I
Yes.
know Flint Sparks, David dragged me to one of his meditations right
And
before he moved to Hawaii. And everybody was
Right.
really sad
Oh,
about the fact that he was leaving.
yes.
And Trent goes on retreat to Molokai with Flint to study under Flint. And I remember also meeting Flint again at your wedding because he married y'all.
Yeah, he married us. Yeah.
And I actually texted Chris after the episode and I was like, Chris, am I remembering this correctly? And he was like, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Can
That
you
is
believe
incredible.
it?
I love that. Yeah. Talk about all being connected. Well, and I've gone to those retreats in Molokai.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, we haven't talked about that.
Well, and so they're moving back to the States.
Oh, they
Yeah,
are.
they are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going through a lot right now. But I think Molokai will always play a special role in their life. And so maybe there'll be more retreats. I don't know. But if we could go to a retreat,
Okay.
it's the most.
That's on the
Yes,
list.
Yes.
That
it's
is on the
most
list.
amazing place.
Well,
But I mean, it's literally, I was just kind of writing some notes for myself last night, thinking of this. And so I was like, who are poets or writers that not? And then I said, who are thinkers? The first name, Flint Sparks.
get out.
Well, he's had such a huge impact on my life. Huge impact on my life. Yeah.
Well, let's talk. Let's go ahead and just dive right in. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it. So I met Flint Sparks through you.
Yeah.
You dragged me to a meditation, and it was like an inside joke for us.
It was because we were giving each other side eye when we're supposed to be meditating.
Totally. And everybody was at that point in my life telling me I should meditate. And
Yes.
I kept yelling, why does everybody keep telling me to meditate? And then you asked me on a lunch date and tricked me into going to a meditation
I totally
center.
did, which was fun.
And that's how I first met him. But I'd love to hear more. I mean, obviously he married you and your husband. So this is somebody who means a lot to you.
He does mean a lot to me. And so I'll say, how I met Flint is I was in a previous relationship, my former partner, who I love, and Chris has a former partner who we love.
Love that.
I do too. There's a story there too. Oh my gosh, there's stories everywhere. But my ex-partner and I were deciding to split up, but we loved each other.
Mm.
And we heard that Flint Sparks was a good therapist. And we went to him and said, we're splitting up, but we want to do this in a way that honors what we have shared and our current love, which just changed,
It's so beautiful.
And he helped us do that. And we are still, I mean, I consider him like a brother. We are still my ex-partner. Flint, I also consider like a brother. But he did that. And through the course of that, Flint and I got to be close. And I know therapists aren't supposed to be, I don't want to we just became friends because we bonded over Buddhism. And it was, for me, the first time I was shifting from thinking from an Eastern philosophy kind of way to an Eastern philosophy kind of way from a much more Western kind of way. And
Mhm.
so talk about opening up your whole world and opening up your mind. And with all I was going through at the time, like it was profound in its impact on my life. Like I don't know another person in that way that's had a more profound impact on my life.
Well, he just sounds like a remarkable person. He had a very similar impact on Trent, who is our
Yes.
therapist and I
Yeah.
love very much. So I
Yes.
get it. And so of course it makes perfect sense that three people that I love and adore would be connected in this way.
Yeah. I love it. You got to have Flint on here.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'll
You,
invite him on.
yeah. He, I think he'd do it, and you two would fall in love with each other.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well,
He's amazing.
so now back to how you and I met.
Yeah.
We met through our nonprofit work.
Yeah.
And so I was chairing the board of the Thinkery and was devastated when Mike Nellis left.
Yes. It's devastating to have Mike Nellis leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you came in and I mean, we just got on thick as thieves.
We did.
I mean, we got along so well.
Which I so appreciated because Mike Nellis is this iconic leader who you with him and Jessica Weaver and all these people led it to be the Thinkery,
Mhm.
which now is this iconic spot. Like we can't imagine there not being a Thinkery.
Oh.
So y'all led that. And then I was just coming in as this like interim dude who like had no connection to the Thinkery. And y'all were so welcoming and you were so kind to me. And I remember sitting with you and just thinking, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Like you never want to follow Mike Nellis, but to have you pave that road for me was huge.
I mean, you are such the perfect person to follow him. Your heart is so
that's nice.
huge. I felt like I was the lucky one to get to watch you and work alongside you. Both of y'all, I feel like I learned so much from.
Do you know, I remember looking at you from the audience down on the main floor and you stood on the stairs. This was the going, I guess the going away from my
Oh,
group.
yeah.
And I remember what you said.
You do?
You said, I believe that the Thinkery is going to inspire the next somebody to be a surgeon, somebody to be an astronaut, whatever, like reach their potential, like reach the great things that they can do. And I just thought, okay, I want to know that person better. I already barely
Oh.
knew you at that point, but that was the very beginning. But like, yeah, that was so inspiring. It inspired everybody there.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
I do believe Thinkery. I mean, I'd love to go back
Totally.
and do a study now and see what the early Thinkery kids are doing
Right.
now because I do believe it's such a mind opener.
It is. It is completely. Do you know Andy Bell?
I do. I worked with him at NI.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Right.
he reaches out occasionally.
He is so great. What he did, how he led that organization through COVID is a like textbook, like how to be a transformational leader. Like I'm in awe
so
of him.
awesome.
Yeah, he's
I'm
amazing.
so happy for him and that team. And that's not an easy transition to make because he
No.
came from, for profit to nonprofit.
Right.
And
right.
that, usually people struggle with that transition and people
he's
just say
thrived.
amazing things.
Yeah.
And what's been really cool about what Andy Bell has done is he has taken the strategic plan that we built early days and he's executing on it and he's making it his own. I mean, it's just really, really cool to see what he's done.
It is. It's exciting. And they're growing. I'm CEO at United Way. I know you know that. But the United Way and the Thinkery are working through a partnership. Ingrid Taylor, our Chief Impact Officer, is heading that up. But we're gonna do some really big things together. It's
That's
exciting.
so
Because he's
awesome.
so visionary. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Well, for people that don't know, the Thinkery is formerly the Austin Children's Museum.
Yeah.
And it's a STEAM-based
Yeah.
children's museum.
Yeah.
So really trying to encourage engineering, science, technology, engineering,
Yeah.
art, and math.
Yeah.
And it was based in some part on the Exploratorium in San Francisco,
Right.
but also is very, very much its own place.
Completely. I mean, it's got the local heart, but it's got the world vision. Like have you been recently?
I need to go back. I haven't been because the kids are grown. I
Yeah,
haven't had a
no,
reason to
I
go, but I
know.
need to go back.
I make excuses to go. So
Oh
I'll
my
say
gosh,
like,
tell
Andy,
me, and let's go together.
Let's go. Let's
Okay,
go. Yeah.
that'd be so
Because
fun.
if anytime we meet, I'm like, Andy's like, I can come to you. And I'm like, no, I'll come to you because it's just so much fun to walk through it. and especially with him and have him
Oh,
explain it
yeah,
all.
let's do
Yeah,
it.
it'd be fun.
Okay, so you brought up United Way. It's kind of interesting because when I met you, you were like, I'm interim guy. That is what I do. I come in the interim. I don't take full-time gigs because I remember I was trying to talk you into
Right,
staying full-time for
right.
Thinkery. And then you took the CEO job at
I
United Way.
did. I did. So I'm going to be totally real with you. I'm not going to give you the. So I left the Thinkery and I was so sad.
Mm,
I did like y'all were kind to even ask me to stay on, and I just, you know how you just know something in your heart or your gut, like I just knew it wasn't where I should stay long term, because I did think of myself as I thought, well, I'm just going to do interim work, and I was so sad. And so I kind of started to do some of my consulting again. And I was just terrible at that because I
I don't
hated
believe you.
tracking hours. I
Oh,
was.
tracking hours. Yeah, that's
I
the death
hated
of
all
me.
that. And
Hmm.
so I would get done with a project and I'd just be like, oh, I'm not going to bill them because I don't know. I didn't keep records, and I hated all that part of it. And I don't think I was doing great work at all. Then I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I got this phone call asking me to come interview for United Way. And I said, no. I said, no, thank you. I said, I'm happy doing consulting, but partly because I had this idea or image what I thought United Way was, which was just this pass-through organization,
Hmm.
which seems totally is obsolete. Like, we
Hmm.
don't need a pass-through organization. Like, you give your money to United Way, and United Way then gives it out to all these favorite charities.
Hmm.
And so, do you know Catherine Morse?
I don't.
Oh my God, you would love Catherine Morse. She was at Samsung at the time. She was general counsel for Samsung. She left Samsung and went on to run a law firm. But um, I knew her because our dads were friends.
Oh,
And so
wow.
they were like, will you just meet with Catherine Morse, who was president of the board of United Way? And I didn't know that. And so she just was like, look, we're in a place where you can come in and kind of paint the picture, like create what you think it needs to be. And that was appealing to me. But it was, I wanted to believe that I was like in this really strong place, and I said no, but really I was kind of worried that like I don't know what is next.
Oh,
And
wow.
this just appeared. And so part of me took it for what I thought the potential would be, but part of me took it out of like, I don't know what else I'm going to be doing because I'm not thriving as a consultant. And so,
Oh,
and then I
fascinating.
got to work with Catherine and the board and this amazing team who I love so much. And it's been 9 years, and now I'm about
It's
to
been
close it.
9
Can you
years?
believe that? Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
I
it feels like it
know.
was yesterday.
I know. I know. And I, Carla, I have loved it. I'm stepping down. March
Mhm,
1st will be my
mhm.
last day. I have loved it. It's the hardest work I've ever done, but I've loved it because of the people involved. And that sounds like such a cliche, but it's just true. I could go around the boardroom and tell you specific things that every single one of those people have done that have be above and beyond. No one knows. They're
Mm,
not doing it so that their other board members notice, since they just give and give and give. And then I look at the team, and these are people who don't make a lot of money, who just care so deeply about the mission. And talk about like when you said, you were honored, like talk about what an honor to get to work with them. Like they're
mm,
my teachers.
yeah.
I learn from them all the time. And on paper, there are many ways you could say we have very little in common, but we have everything in common because we care so deeply about this mission.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Tell us about the mission and tell us
Yeah.
about how you shaped it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I came in and I knew we needed a strategic plan, and Boston Consulting Group, BCG, did that for us pro bono. And
Wow.
so, well, I was in Crested Butte on vacation, and I called my friend who I knew worked there. This is a guy who he calls me his mentor. I would call him my mentor. Like he is younger, but I learned so much from him. And he came to me when I think he had just kind of had odd jobs. And he's like, I'm applying to Columbia to get my joint JD law degree and
Mhm.
MBA. And I honestly thought, What? Like, wow, you dream big.
Yeah.
And I said to him, go for it. But I was thinking, I don't know. Like, I was kind of thinking like I'll be here for you
When it
when
doesn't
it
work
does.
out. Oh
Yes,
my gosh.
yes, I know. This he got in, he thrived. He's a wonder kid who's now no longer a kid, and he went to BCG. So that's why I called BCG. I had no connection with BCG.
Side note of the corporate world, and I mean, this is not a plug. This is not a sponsored event. BCG are the best, in my opinion.
Oh my
Of all
gosh.
the consultants out there, the BCG folks are the smartest
I
ones.
cannot even tell you the quality of work. So he said, he came back, he's like, let me talk to my boss. He came back and he said, we have low bono and pro bono. Low bono will be $500,000. Pro bono will be $250,000. And I said, I need no bono. Like, I need like,
Yeah.
and they did it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know. And they brought in the A team. Through that, I met this brilliant guy named Patrick Hadlock, who they saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they said, the trajectory you're on, you will not exist in 5 years. And their plan saved United Way totally, 100%. They gave us a plan. We followed it. COVID hit during that. So there were many bumps in the road. But Joseph Halverson is my friend who did that. He's now thriving in life and just, oh my gosh, he's brilliant. And then Patrick Hadlock joined our board. Like he was head
Wow.
of the Austin office and then head of the region, but like he's
That
brilliant.
says so much
I
that he
know.
joined the board after.
It says so much about their belief in their work
Mhm.
and their belief in this mission. And so yeah, now they've actually now done round two of the
Mm.
strategic plan because that was a 5-year plan. COVID hit and we did a refresh, and then now this was a whole new kind of strategic framework that we've done, where Ingrid Taylor really led that work. But the mission statement now, I will tell you, I think it reads like, okay, that's a mission statement, but I'll go through it a little bit.
Yeah.
So the mission is we bring our community together to break economic barriers and build opportunity for all. We bring our community together to break economic barriers and build opportunity for all. Okay. But each one of those is so incredibly important because we bring our community together. There's a reason we put that first, because if there's ever been a time in our history we need an organization that brings us together,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh. So it's important that around the table, the boardroom, our corporate partners, our individual donors, our left and right, red and blue, Democrat, Republican, every different socioeconomic level, like that is the magic of how it works. And so we bring our community together. We see that as just so important to break economic barriers. I think most people don't realize, like, it's expensive to be poor. There are barriers all along the way that cost. And I'll give you one example. We were trying to help this man. His he spent most of his savings taking care of his wife who had cancer. She passed away.
Mm.
They had a daughter, they had a young daughter. And imagine being a, this man who just lost his wife, spent their savings trying to take care of her. Being sick is also expensive.
Yeah.
They have this daughter, so he lost his apartment. They lost their home, and then he lost the apartment, and he needed shelter. Well, there are very few shelters that will let a man and his daughter stay. So there's
Oh, no.
limited opportunities for that. They found one that was way out. He got a job, but the curfew at the shelter, by the time he took the bus back from his job back to the shelter had closed. So he couldn't figure it out. And so we helped him. But my point is, there's so many barriers
Yeah.
that people have to face that we don't even like. We would never even begin to
Right. It's so
think about having to
complex.
navigate that. Yeah. And what I love about him is he was like, I am absolutely not going to be a different shelter than my daughter.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way. And so anyway, to break economic barriers, which are many, many, starting out with, do you have opportunity for education? That's the main one. And then build opportunity for all. I will say in 9 years of doing this work, and then before that, I mean, we did this at the Thinkery where we had the open door
Mhm.
program. allowing anybody to come in. Um, I have never met one person who says, "Yeah, just kind of give me the handout and I'll be on my way." People want to work. They
Right.
want to have that dignity. They want to participate in their own success. I mean, not one person in all these years. And so it's building opportunity because that's what they want. It's not giving them something. It's not giving them the latest iPad. It's giving them opportunity so they are building their future. And that's why I love the mission so much.
It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. You know,
Oh,
David,
thank you.
it's just to save an organization like United Way that was basically spiraling towards its death and to put it on a completely different trajectory is impressive. But what are some of the things that you are going to take away from this experience that are you're either proud of
Yeah.
or
Oh
formative
my
memories?
gosh. Yes. I mean, there are thousands. I feel like almost daily. Um, the people I meet and have met who now I know, and I'll share one story with you because
Hmm.
this story to me encapsulates it all. And I love this person so much. So I may tear up. But there's a woman named Christina.
Hmm.
When we at United Way met Christina, so Christina um, was engaged. She and her boyfriend, fiance, moved in together. She used her savings to put him through school
Mm.
to get his degree. The apartment was in his name. She became pregnant and she was thrilled. She was going
Hmm.
to be married. They were going to have a baby. He left her.
Oh no.
Yeah. And that happens a lot.
Hmm.
And so that's about the time that we met Christina. So she had no more money in her savings. She herself did not have a degree or an education. She had nowhere to live because the apartment was in his name and she didn't have a job. So that's when we met her. So we helped, and this is important about United Way. We work with organizations, we partner with organizations.
Hmm.
So I'll say we helped. We didn't do any of this single handedly, but we helped Christina get into ACC, have housing that came with high quality childcare.
Oh, yeah, that's a
And for
game
her,
changer.
yeah, for at this point now, she's had little Antonio, who's basically a newborn, and have resources to live. So fast forward, Christina transfers from ACC to Texas State. Antonio is growing up in this kind of community where there are other single moms. Christina becomes a leader of these
Mm.
moms. And now Christina is a proud graduate of Texas State. She has a career where she is thriving, and Antonio is thriving. She bought her own home.
Mm.
She told me the story that when they were pulling up, Antonio now I think is about 8. Um, they were pulling up into their driveway, and Antonio said, "Mom, wait!" And he opened his car door and he put his foot out and he said, "This is the sound of my foot touching my driveway."
Woo!
I know.
Oh man,
And so Christina is on our board. We invited Christina to be on our board. We want
that's
everybody
so
to,
cool.
yeah. And I watch her and thriving. And I'll say, just like none of our struggles are over, and struggles are not just around economics. Like Christina still struggles. Like she's a
Mhm.
single mom.
Sure.
What single mom doesn't struggle? What two
Of
parents don't
course.
struggle?
Yeah.
So I don't want to paint this picture like everything is rosy and perfect because nobody's life is rosy and perfect. But her life has changed and Antonio's life has changed.
Dramatically.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember her saying, like, I'm not going to be a statistic. I am
Mm.
not going to be a statistic. And this is my point with what I was saying. Like, Christina never asked for or wanted a handout. Christina wanted an opportunity to get her education and work. And that's what she's doing now. And she loves it and she's thriving. And I love her. And so, so if you ask for a memory, I mean, there are thousands of memories, and there are thousands of people like Christina in our community, just here in our
Mm.
community. We're so segregated that we don't see that necessarily because we stay in our bubbles. But I would say the main thing for me that was my teacher were the Christinas, but also getting out of my bubble
Yeah.
and just opening up my mind and heart for the struggles, the daily struggles that way, way, way too many of us have. There's a um, statistic: 46% of men, 54% of women who are single do not have the resources to meet their basic needs
Here in Austin?
in the country.
In the country.
Yes, in the
Wait,
country.
repeat that, David, because
Yeah,
that is just
it's
shocking.
shocking. It is shocking, Carla. I agree. 46% of men, 54% of women who live alone, who are single, do not have the resources to meet their basic needs.
Oof.
I know. So what I go to is, what do we think of when we think of civilized? Like what does it mean to be civilized?
Yeah, or a part of a civilization.
Part
Yeah.
of civilization,
Yeah.
right? Like when we say somebody's so civilized, we might think of them as has it all together, maybe even elegant or well spoken, or maybe even superior in a way. But like when we think of that statistic, and it's not shocking that women are significantly higher.
Mm-hmm.
I want to think of being civilized. It's like, how do we as a community take care of each other?
Right.
That's civilized.
Right.
Like it's going from, because you and I've talked so many times about Ubuntu.
Yeah.
So I am, because we are. It's turning on its head the rugged individual.
Yeah.
You pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, which no one has ever done.
Right.
That is like, no one has ever
Yeah. No one's
made it
really
on their
self-made. Like
right.
the self-made term drives me nuts.
Me too.
No one is
No
self-made.
one is.
Yeah.
And so it's turning that on its head and saying like, no, I mean, civilized is like when we realize Ubuntu, when we realize I am because we are. And so if you're not, then I'm not either.
Yeah.
And so that for me is one of the greatest lessons
Yeah.
of this work at Unite. Yeah.
And we never know when we could have a twist of fate that could change everything.
Carla, you just nailed what I would say are most people's experience. Most, if you grow up in poverty, you're likely to stay in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people go through a health crisis,
Mm-hmm.
a job change. Over about 50% of us do not have the resources to handle a $500 emergency. So for a lot of the people that we work with, literally a flat tire can be life-changing.
Yeah.
Because it may mean they have to spend $300 to get a new tire and miss a day of work, which sets them back on a day's wages. How are they going to pay rent? How are they going to, they're living paycheck to paycheck. You just said what so many people have said to me is, I never imagined that I would be in this spot. When we started, we have 211, which is literally if you dial 211 on your phone if you have emergency need. It's like if you have emergency, you call 911. This is for like if you have need, you call 211. During COVID, 3/4 of the people who were calling had never called before. And almost all of them said what you just said is like, I never thought that I would have to call 211. Most people don't even know about 211. If you need it, you know about it. And said, I never imagined that I would ever have to call 211. And they had such shame. And that's where I love these call specialists. I'm going back again to the people that I get to work with. They are literally angels on earth, because every single caller into 211, they're treated with the dignity they deserve. And they're the most important call right then in that call specialist time. And so they treat them with such dignity. But yeah, you totally tapped into.
Yeah, I've actually sat in on the call center 211. Yeah. And it was when we came and volunteered with NI and
Oh my gosh.
and listened in on some of those calls. And it was shocking
Yes.
to hear what some people were going through. And I was grateful that our city had a resource like that to help people in need.
Totally. I love that you did that. We had to curb that during COVID, and we're really bringing it back, because I think it's one thing for me to sit here and tell you Saving Christina's story. It's a whole other thing for you to talk to Christina.
Yeah.
And so it's like you listening on calls, you're hearing like the way I described to the board, I said, I feel like I didn't sit in on calls my first month, but I would talk about 211. And I said, I feel like I was trying to describe the Grand Canyon to you. And now listening to calls, I feel like I'm standing in the Grand Canyon with you.
Mm.
Like you hear the fear, you hear the anger or the uncertainty. And then in the end, when they realize, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get connected
Yeah.
to the service that I need.
Someone's going to help
Someone's
me.
gonna help me. Someone's here for me. Someone cares.
Yeah.
Like it completely shifts to this gratitude and relief.
Yeah.
And you can hear the lift in their voice. And that's everything. I mean, a lot of times, because we think of ourselves as an organization that helps kind of systemic issues and long-term solutions, but a lot of times that first step into receiving that help is the step in a much longer journey of connection to service that can help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's really neat about it is when I first started to do nonprofit work, gosh, over 20 years ago, it felt like it was an inch deep and a mile wide.
Yeah.
But what you're describing is the exact opposite. It's like
Yeah.
an inch wide and a mile deep because
Yeah.
you're really having to go in deep to
Yeah.
help some of these folks.
Right.
So you just answered one of my questions. So if someone is in need,
Yeah.
let's say they're in need of food or
Yeah.
they're not able to make their rent.
Mm-hmm.
So 211 is the answer.
Yeah.
Is that the only way to reach United Way if you're in need, or what are the other inroads for folks that are actually in need?
Yeah, great question. And I would love to ask you, I'll answer, but I would love to hear, because you said 20 years ago when you were getting involved in nonprofit, what was that spark?
Oh.
What,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you too. You answer the question. I'm going to ask you too. Yeah.
There are many ways. No, you can call our office. There's another way for some people who just, the world is different now. So we do a lot online. And even people who are struggling, like usually have access to something online. And so we have what we call Connect ATX. 211 is nationwide. We, United Way for Greater Austin, run our local 211, but it's a nationwide network. And we needed something. If you called 211, we are not allowed by the contract that we have to run 211 to get back in touch with you. You have to call us. We wanted something where we could do what we call close the loop, follow up, check in and say, did the service that you needed that day help you in the way that you needed? Are you going to need it again? And so we created what we call Connect ATX. It's is oversimplifying it, but it's an online version of 211, where there's a much deeper, talking about going deeper relationship that is ongoing, so that we can get to know in a deeper way your needs, so that we can then be ready and be predictive of the kind of services that we need to be supporting. Yeah. So I'd love to hear, like, what was that? Because I mean, talk about a force in nonprofits and just all that you've done, and I know even way beyond chairing the Thinkery board, but like, what happened in that first initial where you're like, I want to do this, I want to get involved?
Yeah. So I think it's been in me since I was a teeny little girl. So I've always felt tremendous gratitude as an immigrant getting to live in this country, and had a real recognition that my parents left friends and family behind twice over, because they migrated from Uruguay to Montreal, where my sister and I were born, and then they migrated again to Dallas, where we were raised. So I had a tremendous amount of gratitude for that. And then I was also being raised during, the 80s and what was happening, Ethiopia, and we were
We Are the
getting,
World.
We Are the World. Exactly. I was a We Are the World kid. And I was profoundly impacted by the images that I was seeing on television of starving children. And from the time that I was itty bitty, wanted to adopt a child, and in Africa.
Yeah.
And then when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, I convinced a group of neighborhood kids to go door to door with me to raise money. Although I had no nonprofit, I had no.
You just had a big heart.
No, so we came home with like all this money, and my mom and dad were like, "What have you done?" And I had to like go back and give it back to everyone because
you had nowhere to.
But I was definitely pure intended. Like, I wasn't trying to rip all these people off. What's crazy is everybody gave us money. Yeah. I just wanted to adopt one of those kids that I was seeing on TV. So I always had it within me.
Yeah.
And then and even like as a starving college student running restaurants and bars, I always made it a point to adopt a family at Christmas time.
Mhm.
Just felt the need to pay it forward,
Mhm,
pay it forward, pay it
mhm,
forward. Even if I
mhm.
couldn't afford it, I stretched myself to pay it forward. And then as I got older, once I got into the corporate world, Dell was really supportive of their executives serving on nonprofit boards. And Mike Nellis and I had been friends, and he dragged me onto the Thinkery board.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it,
Oh,
I was
yeah,
on multiple boards.
yeah. And now again,
And now again,
ACF.
yeah, with
Yeah,
ACF, I'm
yeah,
back with
yeah.
Mike
Back with Mike
again.
Nellis, yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody can ever leave Mike Nellis.
yeah,
Why would you?
yeah,
Carla, so, and you can stop it with on
yeah.
that, but
Because
I'm curious because I think, so this is a podcast, but so people may not know you're gorgeous. Like,
oh, stop!
no, I know, and I'm not just
Oh
trying to
my
butter up the
gosh,
host. We're friends. Like,
that's ridiculous.
no, but I'm saying, so did you grow up feeling different?
Oh God, yeah. So
So,
yeah, big
wow,
time.
because your parents immigrated here.
Oh yeah. So I was first of all, well, I will say very different. I grew up. There was a big culture gap. We only spoke Spanish in the home. Um, my parents, which I'm grateful for,
Yeah, totally.
my parents didn't understand things that kids did. Like we weren't allowed to have sleepovers. We weren't, they just didn't understand that stuff.
Right, right.
Culturally wasn't.
Yeah,
Now they eventually loosened up and we got to do some of those things, but most of the things kids typically did, like go to parties and
yeah,
date, like
yeah.
we didn't get to
You didn't get to
do.
do that.
And now that being combined, it wasn't like I was being asked out. Let's be
Oh,
clear. I was
well,
no, no,
okay.
no. Let's be clear. I was very um I went through a rough transition. So I had severe acne,
Okay, that hurts.
glasses,
Yep, that hurts.
and curly hair before the advent of mousse or any sort of, relaxing
Right,
product.
right.
So I was awkward. And I was actually bullied in middle school quite a bit.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I think that gave me a tremendous amount of empathy
Yeah,
because by the
totally.
time I got to high school, I got along with everyone. I was friends with
Mhm,
everyone and
mhm.
I had real empathy and I wanted to hang out with everyone.
Yeah,
And I'll never forget it. There was a guy, people say things to you that sit with you.
yes. Oh gosh.
And there was a guy that said to me, he was a year older. And he said to me my freshman year, he goes, "Don't you worry, all those boys that are being mean to you are going to want to ask you out in a couple of years." And he just said it to me in passing.
This was somebody at your school?
Yeah, it was like a
Wow,
kid that was a year older.
wow.
And it just kind of sat with me. And it was so funny because I saw him at a high school reunion recently.
Those must be fun for you to go back
Yeah, I
to.
saw him at a high school reunion recently. He had married someone in our class, and as I walked past him, he whispered under his breath, "Fine wine, baby, fine wine." And it was just like
Oh, I like him.
it was what I needed to hear at that
Oh,
moment in time. But no, I
totally.
was awkward and insecure and bullied and I still have that little girl inside of me
Yeah,
very
yeah,
much. And
yeah.
so it gives me a lot of
But it probably was really part of shaping too who you are, because with your big heart and your giving back and your service and your, being on boards, and then you do more than be on boards, but it probably shaped that,
yeah.
which maybe, I mean, maybe that's true for all of us.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
yeah,
We
yeah.
all have that wounded little kid
Yeah,
inside of us.
right.
Okay, so now back to you because I
Okay.
want to hear you've lived a life of service. I mean, I feel like your whole life has been
Yeah,
giving back.
yeah. It's so wild. And I mean, you and I have talked about this some, but like I grew up around really crazy wealth. You
Mm,
don't know that when you're doing it. You just think that's normal because everybody around you, all your parents' friends are doing the same things. And but then when you get out in the world, you realize like, oh my gosh. So I'll tell you one quick story.
mhm.
Um, so just to give an idea, I mean, this is beyond like we would, in a weird way, in some ways, I feel like this sounds kind of bragging, but
No, it's
one,
context.
well, it's context.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I had absolutely nothing to do with any of this.
Mhm.
And we weren't really like these other families. I
You
mean,
don't have to hedge it.
well, okay. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, we would fly on their private planes to their ranches all over the country. That kind
yeah.
of thing where you just think, wow, okay, this is how you go places. But in my little league, we were in the championship. The championship game was coming up. I was on the Owls. The other team were the Frogs. And the frog's star pitcher, his arm was out. And it rained, which was going to delay the game, which was going to allow for the frog's star pitcher to heal and pitch. And we thought we would lose. So what did our parents do? They rented a helicopter to hover over the field.
That's insane.
Until the field was dry. And I remember all of us lined up on that soggy field watching this helicopter, and the umpire goes out and like dips his finger in the grass and he said, "Play ball." And we knew, and we won. We won the championship.
Oh my gosh.
But like, that's just the kind of like, almost kind of sick. Like, really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And where was that, David?
Houston. I grew up in Houston. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when you're growing up in that, like I was saying, you think that's normal. It is as abnormal and crazy as that is, that just seemed like, oh yeah, like that's what we do. Well, then you get out into you see the world, and college for me was just an extension of high school. It was very sheltered, very sheltered. So then I moved to DC, and I saw just different parts of the world, and I'll say, like, there were people throughout my life growing up who would be, it's a little bit like your guy who would say, "Just wait," and then find wine, who would say to me, "There's a bigger world out there." And my parents were included in that. I'm so grateful to them for that. They did not want us to think that that was life, like that kind of world. So when I was in DC, also was in the process of starting to figure out that I'm gay. And it's as crazy as it sounds now, back then, so this was in the late 80s and the early 90s, I honest to God did not know. And it's because there was no Ellen. There was nobody. It
wasn't an option.
It wasn't an option. It was never presented as, there was nothing represented in anything I saw. A movie, a TV show, a print ad, a billboard, friends of my parents. Never did I see a gay couple or a gay person. Do you remember that show Soap?
Yeah, of course.
And Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
And they did a parental, I was not allowed to watch it because he played a gay character.
No.
So I was not allowed to watch it. It was parental advisory.
Side note, I'm now starting to appreciate how much our parents exposed us to the gay community and gay culture.
Wow.
So they were both in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
And then, also my mom put us in theater, and even the movies we would watch were international films like La Cage aux Folles.
Oh, yeah.
They were super,
Yeah.
and we had friends that were gay.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing the juxtaposition, because you're saying it wasn't an option for you, but I was growing up with it all around me.
Yeah. Which is like, what a gift.
Yeah.
Just to have difference, to have,
totally.
variety and diversity. Well, so I was in DC. I was starting to figure that out. It was scary, and you're right, it wasn't an option. I'm the youngest of four. I was raised very, very strict Christian, religious, very narrow way to see the world. Other than the wealth, just like there is a path that you take, and that's what you do. And I went to the same school my whole life, and I missed from 2nd grade through 12th grade. I missed one day of school because I was sick. I loved school. I did not want to.
Totally see that.
Oh my God, I loved school.
I'm not surprised by that for a
second. Yeah. And still love my friends. Like I went to my 40th high school reunion, and I love my friends, and I've kept up with them a lot. But so when I was in DC, I got sick, and I was like, weird. I got the worst flu, and I went to the doctor, and he was like, "You got really bad case of the flu. You got to go home and get rest and drink lots of fluids and blah, blah, blah." Well, it stayed. And at the time I was in seminary, I was getting a master's in theological studies. And we had a day where we were going to pray with people with AIDS. And they gave us a sheet of like just the order of that service.
Oh God.
And it listed things that people with AIDS go through. And it was like things that I was going through.
All of your symptoms.
Yes. All these symptoms that were flu-like. So I could have said I had the flu, but it was like night sweats. Like, have you ever had any?
Yeah. I'm a 51-year-old woman. I've had night sweats. Yes, I've had night sweats.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So I panicked, and I'd never been to a clinic. I went to a clinic, They took my blood. I left there thinking, I'm fine. It's no big deal. I went back 2 weeks later to get, honestly did not think about it for 2 weeks. I just didn't, I don't know. That seemed like I knew nothing about HIV and AIDS. I went back and she said, your results came back and they're positive. And I said, oh, thank God. And she said, I know. And she said, no, 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 no. You're HIV positive. And Carla, in that moment, I felt like I left my body and I felt like a completely different person because all the privilege, all the certainty of success that was just built into how I was raised felt like it was just pulled out from under me. And I said to her, I don't even know what that means, but just tell me one thing. Does this mean I'm going to have AIDS? She said, yes. And I said, is there anything I can do? And this is horrible. She said, you could drink a bottle of bleach. I know. Isn't that
Oh my
horrible?
gosh,
I know.
David, that makes me want to start crying.
Me too. But this is the thing. This is how messed up my brain was at that moment. I thought, should I wasn't thinking suicide, but I was thinking I would do anything in this moment to not have this. And so I know, horrible.
I just need a second because I just feel like
I know
that is the most horrible thing I've ever heard.
And I want to say, like, I got the bad situation in that, like, everyone I know who was going through this similar situation had very kind and loving people helping them through it. And so, and I found that. And that was the beginning for me, because here's all these people that we have at United Way that we work with. When you are struggling, if you want to say when you are living in poverty, some of the main things that they have shared with me is they feel invisible. And a lot of times they are. They live in areas of the community where people who could do a lot of help for them, could be a lot of help for them, never go. So they're invisible. They feel blamed. You're in this economic situation because you don't work hard enough or you didn't do something right. And defined, like they feel defined by it, like as if their economic situation is who they are. I relate with that because as the weeks went on, I felt completely defined by that. I felt like now I'm not the person that I was. Now I'm just a person with HIV. And a lot of people would have just said AIDS. By the medical definition, I never had AIDS, but like, and I felt blamed. I was hearing constantly all over society, people with AIDS get what they deserve. Yeah. And so I can so relate with that feeling. But here's the thing, and you know, if you said to me, like, what's one thing you would want to say? Like, all these things have taught me, and you too, with what you just shared about growing up, like, there are no others. It's all us.
Yeah.
Like, so
We're all iterations of each other.
Right.
Of the
So
same
it's
thing.
Ubuntu.
It's Ubuntu.
Yeah. And all these people that I was taught, never overtly. My parents were kind, loving people. They never came to me and said, these people are bad, these people don't. But it was in how we lived. It was in what we weren't ever exposed to.
Yeah.
It was in society. Like there were us and them, there were others. And so to have something so absolutely groundbreaking, earth-shatteringly tragic happen in my life, to also provide me the opportunity to realize the gift that we are all one. We are all connected. We are all dependent. And therefore all sacred.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so grateful for that. I'd love not to be HIV positive. It's turned out that I'm healthy, and I'm incredibly grateful for
Thank
that.
God.
Like, oh my gosh, yes. But that experience of overnight, not just relating with, but being considered the other and experiencing that, defined and blamed. Like that was life changing in a way that I think led me to, I just want to give my life for people who, because society's messed up, feel othered, feel like
Yeah.
they're out of society. And then that's your story too.
Yeah. But
I mean,
man, David, how beautiful. And I'm so sorry. It is so shocking to me that that's how you experienced that moment. And,
yeah,
you know, at that point in time, I'm sure you were also terrified. I mean, that
I
was
was
a death
terrified.
sentence
It was a
back
death
then.
sentence. Absolutely.
And so I'm sure you were terrified.
I
And the fact
was.
that that moment where you thought you could be dying is what actually was the seeds to you being the amazing person that you are and the difference that you've made in thousands of lives.
You're
It's
sweet.
just
Yeah.
it's just such proof that, man, we just have to keep going. Like
Right.
when these things come.
So absolutely. So similar to your guy, that one offhanded comment, hey, these same guys, they're going to want to be asking you out. And
Yeah.
then how many years later he
Yeah.
says, fine wine.
Yeah.
Carla, I remember the smallest acts of kindness shown to me in that moment where I did think I was going to be dying. And that almost was the least of it. It was really, I felt tainted and poisonous.
Mm.
I felt like honestly, at line at school, if I was going through the cafeteria line, did I, like, after using salad tongs, did I need to warn the person behind me? Like
Oh.
I'm tainted.
Mhm.
And I mean, we don't see it now because honestly, HIV/AIDS is hardly even in the news, and that's amazing progress because we've had medical progress, we've also had social progress, but horrible things were being said by religious leaders, by
Yeah.
other leaders, by political leaders about people with AIDS, and the sad thing is people do absorb that,
Yeah.
and so
I have a friend that did. I told you that before.
yes, yeah.
So I had a friend, it was a very different outcome, and he was very religious and felt like he was being punished, and he elected to not medicate and passed away. So I'm so grateful that you did do the things you needed to do to take care of yourself, and you didn't isolate yourself.
Well, and I'll tell you, there were probably one, I just, that story just breaks my heart because there are way, way, way too many of those people
Mm.
who bought into you're not worthy to live. And I, Chris and I talk about this all the time, my husband. They are the source for us to speak out now, and not just about HIV/AIDS, but about any cause, any issue, and fight for people who are marginalized or who are oppressed. But similar to your that one comment for you in that kind of pivotal, difficult moment in your life, like I remember my friend Allison Hillman, who's now Allison Buckhalter, invited me to go to the U2 concert. Loved U2, still do.
Me too.
Yeah, I saw him at Sphere, which was
Oh,
amazing. Oh
awesome.
my God, unbelievable. And I did not feel worthy. I did not. I
Mm.
remember thinking to myself, like, I'm not worthy of that ticket. Like,
Mm.
give
Oh,
that ticket to
David.
somebody I know. And I said that to her, and she's one of the best human beings on the planet. And she was just like, "Well, you're crazy. What issue are you're coming with me? You're coming with me." And then she invited me to her family's Seder,
Mm.
and somehow I felt like this honored guest, and I also felt like a member of the family.
Mm.
And I just was like, people exist who care about me, even though I have this. My friend Mark Bryant, my buddy, straight guy from growing up on my whole life in Houston, as soon as he heard the news, he lived on the West Coast. As soon as he heard the news, he flew across the country to DC to be with me. And I remember him saying to me, like, dude, I don't care that you're gay, and I just want you to live.
Mm.
Like, he wanted me to live.
Yeah.
And
Of
those
course.
acts of kindness matter.
Yeah.
Like they matter in such a huge way. So I think both of us are talking about what might, for some people, have been inviting to a concert, coming to visit a friend, saying, hey, just trust me, this is going to be better.
Yeah.
Like those offhanded maybe comments are life changing
Yeah.
and life giving.
Yeah.
So
And the teeny things that you do or say can totally change someone's life,
yes,
and that you can have such a profound impact on someone's life.
yes, yes. And so that, I mean, I know and you know the power of those acts of kindness, and they can be small or big when the effect they have on someone's life. And so that for me was just a driving force, and it sounds like for you too,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
like get involved. Like what I think about is if what imagine a majority of Americans in a recent Pew poll, this is the kind of stuff that I get into, like said they think Americans now are more worried about themselves than worried about others.
Back to the rugged individualism.
Back to the rugged individualism. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I'd go, and also such a clear path to this epidemic we have of depression and loneliness
Loneliness. Yeah.
and feeling isolated. Like, of course we do. And so just imagine if we had leaders who would talk about, no, 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 no. Let's think about each other. Let's build up each other.
Amen.
And then, so if our leaders aren't going to do it, then what if we all did it?
Right.
Like that's so let's us do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, how did you get on the other side? Obviously, these acts of kindness really played an impact, or really made an impact on you, David. But how did you get on the other side of this and get to starting to serve? What was the bridge for you, or was there?
Yeah. So, well, interesting, and I'm gonna be real, of course. I grew up where you are true to your word.
Mm.
And I felt like if I was going to go apply for a job that I needed to tell them I was HIV positive.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. And so I applied for work at a organization that served people with HIV/AIDS because I was like, well, they'll hire me,
Oh, my
maybe.
gosh.
And I did. I got a job there. And I loved it because I'll tell you this story. Oh my gosh. This
Mm.
was pivotal, Carla. This was, there were two pivotal moments, I'll tell you. So when I was coming out, when I was getting my master's in
Hmm.
theological studies, you talk about the universe, God, however you want to think about it and say it, as a sense of humor. The only time in my life my car has broken down and I had to take the bus. I took the bus to school. This
Hmm.
was one day.
Hmm.
Just so happened on that day, there was this guy there were just two of us left on the bus. He
Hmm.
was about my age and he had a backpack, like a, book bag.
Hmm.
And so I walked over, I'm an extrovert, and I walked over and I was like, hey, are you going to Wesley? He said, yeah, my name's David Smith. And I said, oh, funny, my name's David Smith. And so I sat down by
Uh-huh.
him and I said, we just started talking and he was going to Wesley too.
Hmm.
And I said, oh, what denomination are you? And he'd asked me that, and I said Methodist. And I said, what denomination are you? And he said MCC. And I said, I've never heard of that. And he said, it's a church with a special outreach to gays and lesbians. And I said, oh, to change them?
Oh, gosh.
Can
That
you?
was your
That was
reaction.
that's
You're
all
like,
I
that's
knew.
all that exists.
I mean, how embarrassing.
Yeah.
And he said, no.
To
And
accept
I
them.
sat there and I was like, how could a church have outreach to gays and lesbians and not want to change them? And I was like, oh my God, I think he's gay. This was this was like maybe day two of me thinking like, is something? Yeah. Oh
Wow.
yeah. So there is this guy. I've gotten back in touch with David Smith and shared with him
That
what he meant
moment.
to me.
Oh, my
Yes.
goodness.
But so then now fast forward to uh, knowing I'm HIV positive and not knowing what to do and feeling lost and poisonous and I decided I'm going to volunteer for people with AIDS. I'm going to volunteer in an organization, and it was called Food and Friends, and we delivered warm meals to people who were homebound with AIDS.
Hmm.
And Carla, the white men to whom I delivered meals lived on one side of town and had wonderful places to live.
Hmm.
The young black men lived in an entirely different way. And I think that's the first time I saw poverty.
Mm.
I smelled poverty.
Yeah.
I felt poverty. I saw the sitting on the curb just slumped over, hopeless. I saw a guy leaning against the lamppost. I don't know what he was doing, but it was some kind of drug. And I was scared. I
Mm.
was truly scared. I was delivering a meal to this apartment complex. I pull up in my little sports car. I'm the only white person around. I'm walking in, and I'm ashamed and I'm not, because it just was real. Like, yeah, I was afraid. I did not, I was out of my bubble. I was out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
And they had said to us, don't leave the meal. If you knock and somebody's not right there, don't leave the meal because somebody might take it. And so I knocked and knocked, and nobody came. And I'm like looking, and people were looking at me in the hall, and finally, I could hear somebody on the other side of the door. So I kept standing there because I was like, he's in there. And I just keep knocking. And finally, the door opens. And this young, emaciated Black man opens the door, who also happens to have the most beautiful smile I think I've ever seen.
Mm.
And he said, I'm so sorry. He said, I have neuropathy and it is really painful to walk. He
Mm.
was apologizing for taking so long to get to the door.
Oh,
I
goodness.
know. But here's talk about teachers. He taught me. I was scared to death too, because I knew that's where I was headed.
Yeah, or so you thought.
So I thought, yeah. And his smile and his gratitude, and we talked a little bit, and he said, thank you so much. I mean, it was very brief because I had other meals to deliver, but I wanted to talk to him. And I just remember thinking, if he can have that smile, if he can be grateful, if he can be okay, so can I.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think about him, and I don't know his name, but I think about him and the millions of people like him we lost, who probably were afraid and were, many of them, shunned by their own families. And as I since have gone through hard times, now I'm married and we're raising a son. Like, you go through hard times.
Yeah.
I lost a brother, I lost a sister, I lost both my parents. My mom had
Mhm.
Alzheimer's. Like, we all go through hard times. Um, but I think of him, and he is like my strength, in
Mm.
that he he was able to hold on knowing who he truly was.
Mhm.
Then we can too.
Yeah.
We can too.
And he lives on in you.
He lives on. Yeah. And I hope in so many people, I hope whoever knew him carries him with them, because we're all going to run into that. Every one of us. I look around the boardroom at United Way, and on paper, you'd think all these people have these perfect lives, and
No.
nobody
It's
has a
messy as
perfect life.
hell.
Exactly. And all of us are there. All of us has been through that. And so if we can hold on to the interconnectedness, the I need you and you need me.
Yeah.
And so think about that. I mean, on paper, I was providing him a service. He provided me everything,
Yeah.
everything that carried me through. And now that there just happens to be medication that keeps me healthy, like, I've been able to marry the love of my life. I was able to take care of my mom with Alzheimer's. I've been able to keep beloved friendships and develop the most profound friendships.
Mm.
Like, and and raise this son who's gonna find his way, and he's 19 trying to figure it out.
He'll get there,
I'm
don't you
almost
worry.
60 and trying to figure it out. So he'll get there. But yeah, I mean, and that's what I mean, this mix of, we all need each other. And
Yeah.
I think if we can just realize that in a daily way in how we live, we can have the world we want.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away from anybody. It only adds to.
Yeah.
Pie is bigger than enough.
Yeah. Zero-sum game is
Yeah.
actually not a real thing.
Yes.
It's a flawed construct.
Yes.
It doesn't really exist.
I love how you summarize that stuff, because
Yeah.
it's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Chris a few times.
Yes.
I know we're jumping around a lot.
Yeah, I'm
So
sorry. I'm
let me
jumping
know.
around a lot.
No. Let me know if I'm missing something because I do want to talk about Chris and
Yes.
your relationship to Chris because it's a beautiful love story.
Oh my
Y'all were
gosh.
friends.
We were friends. So when I met Chris, I remember meeting Chris. I was with my former partner,
Mm-hmm.
who I mentioned, and Chris was with Ron.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were automatically friends. Like I thought he was the cutest person I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
You did.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
He is. He's like
he
movie
is
star
he is
handsome.
movie star handsome.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And he opened the door. My friend took me over, just, I don't know, we were all just headed out. And Ron had had a bicycle accident and had cracked his helmet.
Oh no.
And so I think maybe we were just going to drop off something for Ron. And Chris opened the door, and I thought he was the cutest person. But I mean, we were friends. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a partner too. So like,
Yeah.
so we became really close friends, and the four of us got together a lot. And the group of friends that started to become my group of friends. And there are pictures, Carla, of us as a group. And in every one of these pictures, it's like the group, Chris and I are always right next to each other.
Oh
Isn't that
wow.
wild? Yeah.
It was meant to be.
But we were just had such a close friendship, and we made each other laugh. And my ex and I split up, and then Chris and Ron split up. They got together when they were like 22, and they were together 18 years.
Yeah.
And just
Still a
life,
success.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So talk about real love. They split up. 7 years later, Chris gets kidney disease. Chris is one of 9. So they were like, probably one of your siblings has like match for a kidney. Maybe you need 6 of 6 markers. So they were testing Chris. It is anonymous. Chris can't know who's testing.
Okay.
And so a lot of us were about to go test. A lot of Chris's friends were about to go test, and some did. And guess who was the perfect match?
I know the answer to this.
You do.
It was his partner,
Ron.
his ex-partner.
Yeah, and I want to say his name, Ron Gerling. Grew up in Austin. Fantastic guy. Ron Gerling, 7 years after they broke up, gave Chris his kidney. He saved Chris's life. You talk about, that's love.
Yeah.
How grateful am I to Ron?
Yeah.
Because Chris may not be here.
Yeah.
And so Chris and Ron is happily married, and they live in San Francisco, and we see them, like we travel with them sometimes. Like it's wonderful.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful what you're presenting here, because I think society tells us that the cultural norm is to vilify our exes.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I even find, like, when people are splitting up, they're looking for the reason. Like, they have to find the reason.
Yep.
It can't just be it's run its course.
Right.
And you know, and I think it was Esther Perel, I could be getting this wrong, about how when you are unhappy in a relationship and you want to get out, you're only remembering the bad. You'll never go back and actually admit the good.
Yeah.
And I think it's so beautiful that you guys have these relationships and this love in your life, and you're moving through the world without all these societal constraints.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. So I'll be vulnerable with you. You saw and heard the emotion in my voice when talking about Ron doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell the story, and then I'm going to get to the vulnerable part. So they're apart. Robert and I split up. We're great friends. He's also happily married. When Chris had his 50th, he got a group of friends. Of course, I was part of that. We were friends. We went to Lake Tahoe just as a group of guys, and swam and hiked and did all the things in Lake Tahoe. It was great. Then I had my 50th the following March, and I just had 4 buddies. My ex, John Hildreth, beloved, just soul friend, Chris, and myself, to go skiing in Santa Fe. Just a quick long weekend ski trip in Santa Fe. Something happened. Nothing happened, but something clicked. Yeah. On that trip with Chris, where it felt different, and we were sitting at Whole Foods at the seafood counter that doesn't exist anymore,
Oh,
which I
yeah, that was such a
lament. It was so
great date
good,
night thing to go do.
right?
Yeah.
And sitting there as friends having dinner as buddies, and the waitress thought we were a couple, and that had happened to us before
Yeah, I'm
several
sure.
times.
Mhm.
And I looked at him, not planning to say this. I looked at him and said, I will say for the first time, I can't say that's never crossed my mind. And he sat back kind of wide-eyed, kind of blank look on his face. And I thought, oh shit,
I messed it up.
I just messed up a really great
Oh,
friendship. Like, I don't want to
no.
do this. I don't want to do this. And then he leaned in and said, I was talking to my sister, Gina, who I know well, last night about the fact that I have feelings for you. And I didn't know what to do. I was just like fireworks went off, like, and, and, and then we decided, we honestly, we decided there's something here. We don't know what. The main thing is we don't want to ruin our friendship. So we took it very, very slow. We took it
Wow.
really
That's
slow.
super romantic.
It was. I'm so glad we did now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
glad we did. But I mean, he had our son, who's now our son. He had at that
Jack,
time his
yeah.
son Jack. We had all these mutual friends. We just wanted to protect what we had, but also protect everybody
I get
around
it.
us. But so then, yes, we fall madly in love, and we get married, and you were there, and that means the
I
world to
mean,
me that you and Jeff were at our wedding. Like, and all the straight guys were hitting on you, and all the gay guys were hitting on Jeff. It's true. It's
I
true.
will never forget.
We literally, Chris had to block his cousin.
I was just
Yes, tell that story. Oh my god.
Oh my God, we're gonna have to edit this out.
Okay. Well, maybe, I don't know.
I'm crying laughing.
But
Yeah, he saved me on the dance floor.
he did
I'll
save
never
you.
forget this. Chris came onto his cousin must have been in his 20s. He was
Yeah,
young.
yeah. Well,
Chris came out onto the dance floor and he was like, oh, nope, nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope, nope. This is nope. And just pulled me off the dance floor. I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we had to save Jeff too. Like it was, yes.
Hilarious.
Yes.
Jeff was loving the attention.
Oh, it was fun. It was so much fun.
That was the best. I am not exaggerating. That is the best wedding I've ever attended in my whole entire life.
You're nice to say that. We loved it.
It
We
was-
felt like, you know why it was so for us? We truly only invited people who we loved and wanted there. We didn't get into, if we invite them, then we need to invite them. We didn't do that. We were just like, we want it to be the celebration of love. And so we knew whoever you met that night, cousin notwithstanding, or lots of guys notwithstanding, but like we knew you would love them and they would love you because it was just all these people we loved. But so we, fall in love and get together and get married, and I adopted Jack, and so now Jack's my son, which you talk about. I mean, I got Chris, which is enough and more than enough. Then I got Jack, which is the best thing ever. Yeah. I mean, you have kids.
It's a reason for being.
And one of the hardest things ever.
Totally.
And also Chris's extended family, who I love. Like
that's so neat.
They're just, yeah. But I struggled with Ron.
Wow.
I did. All ego, all insecurity, all the crap that I hoped my meditation practice would have solved. And no. Yeah. I became.
Was it after he donated his kidney? After
Yes.
he gave him...
Yeah. So he donated his kidney actually right before Chris and I got together.
Okay.
So, yeah, because I just, I don't know,
so
Carla,
you're human.
It was the ugly, oh God, am I human? Whew. Yeah. It was all the ugly parts that we don't want to live in us. And I'll just say, Ron handled it all so beautifully. And I've worked through it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, we're together 10 years now. Like, it seems like, I look back on that, I'm like, oh my God, how embarrassing. Like, God, how embarrassing.
It just shows your love for Chris. There's just love in it. I love all the parts of you.
Well, thank you. I mean, yeah, like, I don't want to beat myself up, but at the same time, I can now look back and go like, how crazy. Like, what? Like,
I mean, it's not crazy.
Well, it's all good now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. I had to go through it. Like I felt threatened and yeah, and insecure.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of it too, is like keep holding on, keep the practice going, because now I genuinely don't.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna spend some time up that way near San Francisco, and we will see Ron and Hugh a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like keep the practice going, keep holding on to what you know is really true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such good advice, David, because I'm struggling with some things right now, and I just have to keep reminding myself this will pass.
Yeah.
Like this, it's
Yeah.
not going to be permanent. And if I can just settle my system and breathe through it,
Yeah.
it'll pass.
Yeah. Right. And that's everything. And
Yeah.
so sometimes Chris and I will be in a place where we'll say, like, God, everything's so good. We want to pinch ourselves. And we'll say, then it will change.
Totally.
And so we say when things really seem hard or bad, and like we're just like, oh my God, what is a way out of this? We'll be like, it will change.
Yeah.
It's so true, but it's so hard to.
Yeah.
It's so hard to. So I love the. Do you know the poet Naomi Shahid?
No.
Oh my God,
Okay.
you will love her.
Somebody you need to turn me on to.
Yes, the opening line to her poem "Kindness" is, "Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose some things." I
Oh,
love.
that's beautiful.
I love that. So think of like some of the things you had to lose, some of the experiences that you wanted to
Yeah,
have growing up.
totally.
Think of what some of the things I had to lose. We all are going to lose things. Things are going to change. Loss is part of life. I mean, you have aging parents. My parents are now
Yeah.
gone. Like we're going to lose things. Things are going to
Totally.
change, and that is how we find out what kindness really is. I don't know. I just
Man, will you read it again? Because I needed to hear
yes.
that today.
It's Naomi Shihab Nye, one of many poets I love. But the poem is called "Kindness," and it's, "Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose some things."
Mm.
I know, and like think of all the fear and time we waste on fearing loss.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we don't want
Resisting
to
it.
lose it. We're clinging. We're holding on,
Yeah.
and yet that's the very thing that will allow us in this poem is like will allow us to see what kindness really is. Liz Stewart, my soul sibling, just beloved friend, when we will be talking about someone and someone new like in our lives, she'll say, and then we'll say to each other, are they broken? And that's how we know, like, can we connect with them?
Oh my
Can
gosh.
we, like,
It's
have they
so
had an experience?
it's
Like,
so funny that you said this because for me, heartbreak, you can have one or two reactions, and I've had both in my life. You can either let it break you and you zip
yes,
yourself up.
yes,
You mend yourself and you zip yourself up and you don't let anything back in, which I've done.
yeah,
Or you can actually let it break you
yes.
open.
Wow, even what you're doing with your
Yeah.
body, I love
And
that.
you can
Yes,
love that much more.
yes, right.
And somebody once said to me, a very wise person once said to me, it's not heartbreak that hurts, it's the resistance of it. But if you actually let
That's
yourself feel it,
yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
yeah,
Because it's just your heart breaking open.
yeah. Wow. So then I want to go to what in your life, who were the people or what were the experiences that allowed you to open up and not zip up and close off?
Yeah.
Like, what was that for you?
Oh gosh. So I've talked about this on another podcast. I don't know if I've talked about it on this one, but I cut myself off from my heart um probably around 18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
I went through some pretty traumatic stuff
Mm-hmm.
and just zipped it up and was operating from a place of mind and gut. And that served me super well.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me to the highest ranks of the corporate world. And I was able to do really hard things like fire thousands of people
Yeah.
and make really tough decisions.
Wow.
And I was kind of known for my bravery and my courage. But really it was the fact that I just cut myself off from my heart. And I started to work with this coach, Joe Hudson, who's been on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw this in me right away.
Mm-hmm.
And and I had said to him, I want to. Actually said in advance to working with him. It was actually before we did the travels. Um, that I was trying. The reason I did those travels is because I wanted to reconnect to my family and reconnect to my heart. And then magically,
Yeah.
kind of like your bus ride,
Yeah.
this coach shows up in my life
Oh
to
my
reconnect me to
gosh.
my heart.
Yeah.
And it was actually at one of his week-long retreats where it happened. And I actually remember the moment that it happened. And he was, I don't want to tell too much because he doesn't love to share what happens in the retreats, but
Sure.
we were moving grief.
Yeah.
And he said, they laid out all these yoga mats for us, and there were tissue papers, like there was Kleenex next to all the yoga mats. And I remember thinking, not unlike, why does everybody always telling me to fucking meditate? And I saw the yoga mats and the Kleenex, and I was like, oh,
Oh, here we
great.
go. Yeah.
And he said, before we get going, just so you know, sometimes when people are moving grief, something else might come up, another emotion may come up, like
Yeah.
anger or something else. If that happens, just quietly leave the room and we'll be there to assist you. And so we start this process that they take us through to move grief. And I just start going, like I feel like I'm going to vomit. Like I feel like I'm going to purge
Wow.
something, and it is just growing in me and growing in me, and it is getting bigger and bigger. It's almost like a roar that is
Yeah.
about to come out of me.
Wow.
And I am raging, where anger was something that I had
Oh yeah.
feared
Yeah.
and had avoided.
Suppressed.
Yeah, I picked my husband because I've never heard him raise his
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
anger is something I
Right.
always avoided.
Right.
And so I was just raging,
Mm.
and I climbed the stairs to find my coach there. There were other people there, but I didn't see them. I was just like blackout angry. He handed me a tennis racket and pointed me to a set of cushions, and I began to go to town.
Oh
I
my
just
God.
wailed
Chills.
and screamed and went to town on these pillows, and to the point where there was nothing left in me. He said I went for 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And I
Oh my gosh.
crumpled to the ground.
Were you crying?
Yeah, I crumpled to the ground at that point. And I'd also not been able to cry for, like, Jeff's joke was like I hadn't cried in 20 years. And
Yeah.
he scooped me up
Mhm.
off the ground, and he took me to another room, and he washed my feet.
Just gave me chills all over my body.
And then he carried me again and took me back down to where everybody else was starting to come down off their grief. And he laid me back on the yoga mat, and his wife spooned me. She basically curled around me and held me, and um, and then let me be. And then I remember looking up, and a friend of mine, Steven, was coming into the room. And Steven's a former college athlete, like big dude. And I just saw the little boy in him as he was coming in. I saw the look on his face, and I held my hands out to him.
Oh.
And he curled up in my arms as if he was my baby, like curled up in my arms on the floor. And Steven had been struggling with insomnia, and he just fell asleep. He
Oh my
went totally
gosh.
boneless to the
Oh
point
my
where I was
gosh.
pinned
Oh my
and
gosh.
began to snore. And we started to laugh. So fast forward to after everything had finished, we were sitting in a circle and discussing what had happened. And I said, I experienced complete and total heartbreak. My heart broke wide fucking open, and I am feeling incredible love for the first time since I was 18, 19 years old. And Steven said, and I felt it wash all over me. And that was it. There was no going back for me after that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hold
Yeah.
back. Now, I will tell you, vulnerably, it gets me into trouble.
Yeah.
Because I
Sure.
love everybody
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And I love
You do.
everybody too much.
You do. Yeah.
And it is
Wow.
problematic for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because I see everyone as someone to be loved.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I'm now trying to regulate
Yeah.
and calibrate.
So God, I have 1,000 questions, but I relate some with that challenge of like, and everyone is worthy of being loved.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we? It seems like the challenge is, but you can't be heart, soul, best friends with everyone. That's
No.
not possible.
Yeah.
And I will say that is has been for me a gift. My marriage has been a gift to me in that way,
Mm.
in a million ways.
Hmm.
But like, no, I I am going to focus on home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm gonna love, but so just to go back a little, Carla, and when you were having that kind of letting it out and
Hmm.
the tennis racket and the crumpling, did you know in that moment what was the object of your rage?
Yeah, I did. And it wasn't what you would have thought it was. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't like a traumatic event.
Yeah.
It wasn't the things that I probably should rage at.
Yeah.
It was something, and I'll share this very vulnerably. I had felt rejected by my mom,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I was envisioning me as a 4-year-old
Yeah.
needing something and not
Yes.
getting what I needed. And I felt super rejected. And it was funny because also after the fact, I was talking with a girlfriend about it who was at that same retreat.
Mhm.
And she goes, wait a minute, how old were you? And I was like, 4. And she was like, oh no, I was 3. I was 3. And she goes, oh, let me get this straight. So you were 3, which would have meant that your sister was an infant, which meant, of course, your mom couldn't meet your needs because she just had a
Oh.
baby. And it just was like,
Oh
oh,
my God.
I'm not
Oh my
rejected by
God.
my mom. That is a story I've been telling
Wow.
myself.
This is huge.
Yeah,
I
it
have
was
chills
it
again.
was massive, and it was just one of those tiny things that I just, like, hung on to
Yeah.
from, like, 3 years old,
Right.
which was, like, the silliest thing, and
Sure.
and she was like it was just so funny because she was like, "Of course she couldn't meet
Yeah.
your needs. She
Yeah.
was, you know, she was
Yeah.
barely hanging on. She just had
Right.
a baby."
Right. Which is revelatory to you as an adult, but there is still that 3-year-old that had needs. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, wow.
yeah, the stories we tell ourselves, huh?
Right.
Yeah. So it wasn't like some major thing. That was just what started to come up in the grief. And then now I would say that's what came up in the grief and triggered the kind of bit while I was wailing. I wasn't picturing anything in particular.
Yeah.
Like while
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was going,
yeah.
yeah,
Right. You were
that
just
I
letting
was
out
blackout.
almost like a
Yeah, it was somatic.
primeval. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Totally somatic.
Wow. Yeah, the stories we tell ourselves, because that to me circles all the way back to there's no others.
Yeah.
It's all us. There's no us and them. There's certainly no us versus them. Because the story we tell ourselves, if we don't take the time to get to know each other, if we don't give each other the benefit of the doubt, if we don't see every person as like you are now, everyone is worthy of love, then how easy it is to create that story, and it's probably has no bearing in reality.
No, none
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it can affect how you move through the world.
Totally.
Um,
Totally.
okay, David, have we left anything unsaid? Because you are such, for me, you're one of the most inspiring, loving people that I know. You're like a walking Buddha.
You're kind.
And so I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything.
I don't know what we missed. You brought up Chris, and I could talk about the joy of being married to Chris Long all day long.
Oh.
And I I guess, so I mean, I was 50. And so I guess I would say, like, never close a door.
Oh,
Never close
that's
a
phenomenal
door,
advice.
because it's like that saying, if you live life, you only have one life, but if you live it right, once is enough.
Uh-huh.
This feels like, well, you can be married many times, but if you get one, like, if you get the right marriage,
Hang on.
it's enough. And so
Yeah.
even starting at 50, like we did, yeah, it's 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 the best thing. He's the best thing that's ever happened in my life. And so just to be able, which only like just blows up even more gratitude for the acts of kindness that gave me hope and made me feel human when I was at the lowest point in my life. Gratitude for that guy who opened the door with a smile. Gratitude for meeting
Mm.
beloved friends like you. Gratitude for all of it. And it's some of what you and I've talked about too. Like you can almost look back and think of like every encounter, every friendship, every person is just an invitation to like rest in this love. The love is the reality. We
Yeah.
don't have to create it. The love is the reality. And so that opened up the possibility for me to be married to this guy who's just the love of my life. And And it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to think
no.
it's not perfect.
What did we say, that every great relationship has a little bit of murderous intent? I heard Terrence Real say that once. I thought that was so awesome.
Because it's so true.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure he wants to murder me many times, and I have probably wanted to murder him a few times.
Well, I think it's especially inspiring to think that our life is never over.
Yeah,
we have a tendency to say, oh, well, I'm past the point of when I would find love, or I'm past the point of when I would find the love of my life.
Right.
And I just think y'all are such an amazing couple and such an amazing love story.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of gratitude, I have something that I've been saving that I want to close with.
Okay, good.
And it is, it's actually an email you wrote me in 2018.
Oh.
And it is, and I'm trying to decide if I should have you read it or if I should read it. But
Your trip.
the trip, yes.
Yeah.
So when we were unenrolling the kids from school and traveling the world, to start to reconnect to my heart, and we sent an email out to everyone basically saying, hey, we're going off grid. We're not going to have our devices. You said, you're heading to two of my favorite places on the planet. I've only landed in India, so I've never been, but Bhutan in Mexico holds some of the most memorable and sacred memories of all of my travels. At the first all-staff meeting when I arrived at United Way, I talked about Ubuntu. And we call this time Finding Ubuntu, so you're responding to that. This is unsolicited free advice, so take it for what it's worth, smiley face. All of these travels will open your hearts in big and surprising ways. And seeing other cultures and meeting grounded people is always so helpful in expanding our worldview. But from all of my retreats and travels, what strikes me most is that all of the lessons I keep learning are available to me right here at home. That's not at all to suggest not taking the trips. I'm all for them and continue to do them myself. But the connection and love we're all seeking is right here in us. And the opportunities for deeper growth are right across the street, or maybe even in the mirror.
Wow.
David Smith. Thank you so much for being my friend. I feel so lucky.
Thank you, Carla. I love going there with you.
I have a feeling I'm going to have you back.
Oh my gosh.
I think you're not done yet.
This was, well, it feels like just another, like we walk, we do whatever, we sit by each other at events, whatever it is. It feels like just another like best heart conversation.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for opening your heart to us. And I'm so grateful that you're on this planet and giving so much to all of us.
Thank you. Grateful for you. Love you.
Love you. Thank y'all for listening today. If you're so inclined, please follow, subscribe, download, share, all of the things so that we can keep going. We appreciate your support so much. If you're interested in learning more, go to thecoeffect.co.